Well, shareholders of Unibank, one of the 5 banks, collapsed after the Bank of Ghana deemed them insolvent, has criticized the regulator over its refusal to furnish them with a copy of an investigative report into the operations. The report by auditing firm KPMG highlights the infractions which must have informed the decision by the regulator to withdraw the bank's license. The shareholders of Unibank, however, maintain Bank of Ghana has not been fair to them, especially because it has failed to give them a copy of the KPMG report. Professor Newman Kusi of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, a non-executive director of the defunct bank, speaks for the shareholders.
My concern is that the shareholder asked for the details of...
Do you have a specific response to the allegation that 3.7 billion was paid to shareholders, and examples are here given in this disputed report?
I don't have any problem with that, as long as it can be clarified, that we expect proper clarification of how the related companies were determined. I don't have any problem with that.
Right. For instance, some staff of other companies were seconded to Unibank, and Unibank was paying them for a period of 4 years. A number of companies were named in there. Is this the case?
Yes. I hope if Unibank second staff to other companies or related companies, there should be a terms of the secondment. You can't just send somebody from Unibank and say, go and work at Accra Brewery or so and so. Before that is done, there should be some sort of agreement or the terms of the secondment.
Right.
The KPMG established the terms of the secondment of these staff to the related companies. And if they did, what was it?
Okay, Prof, finally, would these concerns that you have raised about what KPMG has done and what the Bank of Ghana has done, would the shareholder be taking any action? Would you be deciding to go to the bank, to go to court, I mean?
Of course, the shareholder will have to take action.
Okay.
The shareholder will have to take action. You have to.
What action? What action is he taking?
If nothing at all, there has been a report prepared by an official administrator on his assets, his bank.
Yeah, so
as a result of
which action is he taking, sir?
Let me finish. As a result of the report, the bank has collapsed. So if you are the shareholder, would you sit down quietly and fold your arms?
So what action is he taking, Prof? What action would he take?
That's one I can't tell you what actions I'm taking, but what I'm sure that an action will be taken.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yes.
Well, Evan Spencer joins me in the studio with more on this story that seems not to be going away, and the story is not going to go away until we have some finality from Yoko or the Bank of Ghana and the prosecutorial agencies. But now, beyond one of the issues they're raising, the shareholders of Unibank are raising, is the fact that there's a conflict of interest situation which KPMG finds itself. Can you elaborate on that?
So KPMG, we know, was the official administrator appointed in March when the Bank of Ghana issued a statement to say that because of liquidity challenges, they had to step in. Now, KPMG was appointed. KPMG was to run Unibank for 6 months and then hopefully turn it around. The Bank of Ghana did not allow KPMG to exhaust the 6 months. I think they were 4 months or so into their administration, and then Bank of Ghana decided to pull the trigger. Now, KPMG did a report. Now, the report formed the basis for the Bank of Ghana's action to then dissolve Unibank as it is. Once that happened, which was what we saw on the 1st of August, once that happened and Unibank became dissolved and became part of the now consolidated bank, that KPMG now has been appointed as a receiver in the consolidated bank. Now, the argument that Unibank makes is that when your report is the basis for the collapse of a bank, once the bank's collapsed, now you are now taking over the bank in another aspect in terms of running it as a receiver. Now, the argument is that KPMG, in essence, is seeking to benefit from its own report. In other words, you write a report which triggers a collapse of a bank. The bank collapses, it's metamorphosis into another bank, and then you get to
the other end of it, waiting to
and so you're going to be paid. You're paid to do a report that collapses the bank, and you're going to be paid now to also run down the different entity from the same bank that your report collapsed. That's the point that it makes, that it places KPMG in a conflict of interest situation.
Right. Now, beyond their issues with KPMG, the shareholders have also raised other issues.
Particularly, and this is also captured in the KPMG's own report, which again we must point out, that report has such a strong caveat that anytime you touch it, you need to mention that report did not verify and confirm its own claims in the report that he gave to the Bank of Ghana. And KPMG was very clear to the Bank of Ghana that this report, you can't use it. If you do use it, you use it at your own risk, so to speak.
This report essentially is not an audit.
It's not an audit. So they didn't render an audit opinion on the things they found. It's simply, in essence, a reproduction of...
Because typically, because they're an auditing firm, if they engage in any such, you would expect that this would be a comprehensive audit. But
like we saw in the Boulders report.
Yeah, but they're saying in this case, this is not an audit report, so don't take it as such.
Yes, so what it does to you is you need to read that report with caution. Don't come to conclusions. Don't take decisions on that report alone without verifying first.
You'd have to,
You have to verify, etc., etc. So that report itself is in huge question. But something they said in there, which we are now also learning from all the documents that we are getting, from, of course, the Unibank end of things, is that before the bank collapse, the shareholders made proposals, commitments to inject their own capital into Unibank, something in the reading of 4 billion cedis, so to save the bank. In fact, they were ready to, they say, liquidate their assets. In other words, the shareholders had assets that they were ready to liquidate and put back into the bank. And we've seen one document in which, in fact, the shareholders provide evidence of some of these assets that they were ready to put in the bank. Now, the thing that we are learning now is that the Bank of Ghana itself and the KPMG in their final June report, the Bank of Ghana, ignored these proposals and commitment from the Bank of Ghana.
What were some of these proposals and what were some of the assets they wanted
to make available? From what we've seen, they had, of course, landed properties. They had buildings that the shareholders, had, and some of the Unibank properties themselves that could have been leveraged, is a word they use. In fact, I want to quote part of this just for the avoidance of doubt. It says here, assets provided by shareholders valued at 4.4 billion with a forced sale value of about 3.52 billion cedis to be liquidated or leveraged for injecting liquidity was totally ignored in the June 30th financial position of the bank. And they then quote the Bank of Ghana's own guidelines that actually says they could have done that if the bank was in trouble, which is Section 223 and 224 of the Bank of Ghana's Guide for Financial Publication of Banks, which allow the forced sale of such assets to be traded as assets held for sale. Now, we are learning that option was not taken by the bank. The central bank did not carry forward that option.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, why? Because if they could have done this and put money back in for Unibank to survive, why did the Bank of Ghana choose to go with the other option of collapsing the entity altogether? There's a second bit, which is again in the KPMG report, with the caveats I've already put out there before we started, which is that if the shareholders did that, they put the money back, and the two main sources of the hole in the Unibank thing. The second was loans that the government itself took from Bank of Ghana, from Unibank, and that if the government paid up those loans, which almost around the region of 1 billion cedis, in addition to what the shareholders had committed, that would have gone a long way to keep the bank afloat. And that both didn't seem to come, the government didn't pay up its loans, and the shareholders were not also allowed to put their money in, although they had, from one of the evidence we saw, they made commitments in the first tranche of some $200 million. Yeah. And the subsequent ones they had laid on going into August and September. But they, of course, they were not given the chance to, would have saved the bank. Those are the kind of things we're learning. Of course, now there are questions that I guess the Bank of Ghana would need to respond to, which is why did they not at least consider
why they went with one option against the other options
which were on the table. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Evans Mensah.